All right, so we're here today to go over a score report presentation. This is for an EFD 620 class that I'm taking. And what it is it's an analysis to try to break down to you, the parents, and you, the teachers, that will have parents asking, and you can kind of have the opportunity to explain how or what these scores mean and kind of how to interpret these score analysis that we sent home with our students. So what this one is in particular is about the Scantron Performance Series test. So let me back up just a second and show you kind of what our demographics look like at Sardis. We've got roughly 540 or 50 students in our school. And as you can see, 90% of them are Caucasian students, and then the minority students you can see here listed and what their minority status is. This bar graph here sort of explains what subcategories they fall in from an academic perspective. So 88% right there, I know it's tough to see, but you'll have a copy of this. 88% of our students are general ed. And then you can see we've got a large number right here. This blue bar is socioeconomic status. We've got over 45% of our students who suffer from a low socioeconomic status at our school. But that's our demographic perspective of our whole entire student body. And you parents can kind of see where your children might fall within that demographical perspective there. All right, so we use this analytics. It's like a universal screener that we use. It's called Scantron Performance Series. And it's administered 3 times throughout the school year. Here we are in the middle or nearly the middle of November. So we're kind of embarking on the second testing. It happens 3 times, fall, winter, and spring. So our fall administration of this was done in August. I think August the 13th August the 17th for most of our students. And what it is, it's computer-based. They take it on a computer. You can use it in multiple subject areas, and we'll see that, but we use it in math and reading, all right? It's computer-based, and like if your child is taking a math portion and they get the very first test question wrong, if you look at this, your child's ability, so you get the first question incorrect, the second question will be easier. If you get the first one correct, the second question will be more difficult, obviously. So it sort of fluctuates with your child's ability, all right? So not all of this will be, like, your scale score will come, but it sort of boils down to what order you answer your question, whether correct or incorrect. And that's one of the neat things about this, is that it sort of adapts to their ability in that regard. It individualizes the experience for each child. So, the test questions will vary. They'll be on the same topic, subcategories, but the level of difficulty will change. So how is that helpful to you? Unique tests are matched to the child's abilities, more accurately determine their next steps in the classroom. So whether these students might need to be pulled out for intervention, whether they need to be progress monitored in class, whether they're in need of no interventions or whatever, it makes it useful in that regard. And you can pull from Scantron Analytics all sorts of data, not just performance series data. You can pull attendance data, discipline data, any kind of data that you want to see. How does it help the teachers? You get immediate feedback on anything that you can pull data from anywhere in Scantron and get all sorts of data from that regard. Educational materials can be customized. That will help the teacher say, okay, this student's scoring here, this is where they're struggling on something, whether it be a subcategory of algebra or it be a subcategory in reading or whatever. You can really zone in on what the students are struggling with, and that's what makes it so beneficial to the teachers. So that's what Scantron Performance Series is in a nutshell. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, would my kid's test be the same as somebody else's?
No. If your child scores however well, the test is going to be administered in 50 questions. It's a 20-minute average or whatever for most kids. If your student starts off and they miss 4 of the first 5, then the questions start getting a little easier. So a similar student wouldn't have the same identical questions, but the difficulty would be the same. So it's not sitting like in a classroom setting, paper, pencil, bubble in format where you've got all tests are the exact same. It sort of adapts to your student individually. All right, so what subject areas are covered? Like I said, we use it in math and reading, but math, geometry, reading, they're all there. Reading foundations, language arts, life science and inquiry, algebra. That's majorly what you can C from Scantron Performance Series if you so choose to test in those areas. What else should you know? Again, this is kind of small on the screen, but you have a copy of this. The Performance Series aligns to state standards because every school system in the state of Alabama who offers this have already coordinated that, and it is sort of aligned to the state standards. And then it's broken down here for each individual, and I'm not going to go over it individually, but each of the green subject areas, it has the subcategories underneath there to see what all is being tested through Scantron Performance Series. And like I said, all of these things are involved with the state standards courses of study.
Lindsay White, come to the office. Lindsay White, come to the office.
All right. So when you get your score report, and we'll go over that, I've got a screenshot of a couple right here in just a second that I'll show you. You're going to get a scaled score. All right. So the one I'm going to show is a 10th grade. This is the grade level, 10th grade. Math, reading, doesn't matter. But in the fall administration, if they are below average, their scale score will be below or equal to that number. That number is 2563. Well, in the winter, if they've made no progress, they're still held to a little higher standard because they've been in school for 3 or 4 months. Therefore, if they're still below average, their scale score should have still increased. All right? And that does the same exact thing in the spring. Their scale score should have increased even though they didn't really make a whole lot of progress. So that's something to understand, that those numbers do change, but because they're being held to a slightly higher standard as the school year progresses. And the way Scantron breaks it down is below average students, and on a score report you'll see in a minute, they're color coded. They will be red. Low average would be a light pink color. High average, which would be sort of like benchmarking, will be light green, and above average would be dark green. And they put them into those quartiles, and it shows you where they are on the scale score chart. All right. So right here is an individual performance profile report is what this is called. That's what comes home with all the 10th grade students who took this. I've got this individual student's name blocked out where you can't see it. It is a female student in the 10th grade, and this is a copy of her math report. And it shows you right here the test dates, the time of the test, and the time spent on the test. So worth noting is that this student spent 12 minutes and 46 seconds on the math portion. At the bottom, they spent 12 minutes on the reading portion. The average test time is 15 to 20 minutes. So how accurate of a depiction are we really getting? We'll just have to you have to take that with a grain of salt in that regard, because some students do kind of jump through the test a little more quickly than they should. But they get the scaled score, and I showed you the quartile chart a second ago, what their scaled score is. This student scored a 2549 in math. Well, on your report, if you look at it, your child's got a green dot, all right? If they are below average, they'll be below that dotted line. That green dot right there is where your child is in math. The state average, the district average is that yellow box. It happens to be sitting right on the dotted line, which means that the national average is on par with the Etowah County district average. So that is a good sign that the district does perform on average. This student is just behind in that regard. She is below average, so that'll allow us to tag her or identify her as a student who is in need of intervention. Same deal for reading down here, below average. The green dot is a little bit further below the district and national line in reading than it is in math, but nonetheless, there is room for improvement in both of those subject areas. This 10F right here means that this is a 10th grade student testing in the fall. The winter testing will be 10W for that student, and then 10S for in the spring. A couple other things that you might wonder about when you see this is the national percentile ranking. What that means is that student with an NPR of 22 would be expected to score better than 22% of all students who took it. And then GLE is grade level equivalency, so that student is on a 5.5 according to Scantron, a 5th grade level in math, and she's in the 10th grade. In reading, they do this thing called Lexile. Lexile gives you a number or a reading is 780. So you can go on to lexile.com and pull resources for that student to practice reading, and you punch in that is the Lexile reading, and it pulls resources that are of that equivalent grade level. So that's what the score report would look like. Hopefully, in the winter, we get this student off of this below average and maybe to a light pink color coding of average. That would be the goal, obviously, through intervention and whatever extra practice that student gets. All right, so if you zoom in, that's what I showed you. There's the green dot below the district line and the national line. All right, and it's placed on there where she tested late August. Here is what the teachers have access to at the high school. This is the individual report service unit that I've removed the names off of. It tells you their skill score, their percentile ranking, and what quartile they're in. The quartile is important because that allows us to figure out who we're tagging, who we're pulling out for intervention, and what their intervention would look like. So all of these red students, they come out during line period. Line period is a period we have 4 days a week that you all are aware of. We're in our second year of using line period. They pull out during that class time it's 30 minutes a day for extra practice in those subject areas, all right? So how do we monitor their progress? Their STAR testing, IXL is another testing platform that they can utilize, but for the most part, they will progress monitor, these intervention teachers will progress monitor these students by STAR testing them. Light pink, they don't come out of line period. They get intervention during class with the regular classroom teachers. They too STAR test to monitor their progress, all right? When you get to light green, that means you are, your high average is how Scantron labels you. Light green means that we're just looking at your grades, make sure you're doing well in the classroom. And then obviously the dark green, those kids are above average and they're doing fine. All right, so what's it mean for the school, and we're almost done. It allows for proper intervention planning. Like I said, you can use this chart to figure out what direction you're going with planning your intervention. It allows for adapting teaching strategies and techniques. Teachers can change what they're doing to adapt to the needs of individual students, small group instruction, things of that nature. It gives the school good progress monitoring capabilities. It's easy to tag students and see where they need to be and what they need to be doing from an intervention perspective. And the last thing here is it allows for developing plans to ensure academical student growth. Go ahead.
How do you handle the intervention planning on like a student by student basis?
Right, so like what we're looking at right here on this chart, they'll take individual students and they'll color code tags. These red are below average, so they're going to be the ones who are pulled out every day during line period. Well, not on Mondays, but Tuesday through Friday. And then the light pink. So they use this color code diagnostics from the quartile chart, essentially, is what they're using. Anybody have any other questions? All right, that wraps up this score report presentation.